Okay, so thank you for accepting the interview.
No problem.
First question, you have traveled around the world to speak about business model, but can you tell us about your business model?
That's an indiscreet question. So I do a lot of speaking, but I don't want to live just from speaking or doing consulting. I don't think that's particularly interesting. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to push the boundaries in terms of tools in business model thinking and strategy thinking in general. So we're building a software company that is building tools for senior executives and entrepreneurs to build better businesses.
Okay, how is it called?
Well, it's called the Business Model Foundry. You can find two products. One is onlinestrategizer.com. The other one is an iPad app, which was the first prototype. It's called the Business Model Toolbox.
Okay, so I wanted to know if you struggled, if that happened any time before getting where you are today.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, so I like experimenting, and when you experiment, not everything goes right all the time. So before we came up with the book the way it is today, we thought, hey, we could do a book that's sponsored. So we wanted to do a visual book. Visual books are very expensive. You need a designer, you need printing for colors. So where do you take 250,000 euro from when you don't have them? So we figured out a business model to make that work. And even there, not everything worked right away. So a lot of things went wrong. But, there was a lot of traction also. So a lot of fun things that now I think are fun, that when I was living through them, man, that was really tough, for sure.
And did you start with this idea, this development around the business model? I think you studied a PhD in...
Yeah, I did my PhD on the topic of business models. The original idea came from Yves Pigneur, who's my co-author today, who was my PhD supervisor. So he was looking for somebody who would help him work on the idea of making a drawing table for business, like an architect has a drawing table for architecture. So I started doing my PhD with him, and since we're a very good team and we work very well together, this went on. So it's his original idea, and then we started working on it together, and sure enough now, there are 600,000 books out there, 26 languages, software is being used. It's really fun to see that there's a real traction here. But the whole thing started a long time ago. It took a lot of time to get these ideas to mature and to get people to use them.
Okay. What's the one thing that you have accomplished that you're the most proud of?
The one thing that I've accomplished that I'm most proud of? Definitely hasn't to do with business. It's getting married with the most amazing woman in the world that you can imagine.
That's sweet. How many times a day do you pronounce the name business model?
How many times a day? All the time. So obviously I'm obsessed by this topic, but I think if you take a company, everybody should be responsible for the business model. Doesn't mean because you can't make decisions on the business model that you're not part of the business model. Everybody in a company plays a part in terms of product development, maybe in the channels, doing this right, doing that right. If you don't understand this bigger picture, the business model, you can't do a good job. So I think we'll have more and more people thinking about business models more than ever before, because you cannot do anything in the right way if you don't understand the big picture.
Okay, is there a book that changed your life?
A book? There are tons of books that changed my life. I'm a big fan of Also sprach Zarathustra von Nietzsche. It's a philosophy book that I read when I was a teenager. And, it influenced a lot of my thinking. But there are tons of authors. And before I started with business authors, there were other authors. I think there's one thing that I always found interesting is doing things differently. I was always fascinated by people and stories where things are done differently. So that definitely influenced me.
Okay. Same line of question. Who are your mentors?
Who are my mentors? I had tons of mentors. I don't want to single any out. I mean, the person who had a huge influence on where I am today is Yves Pigneur. I mean, we started out together with these ideas. He was the originator behind this. we did a long path together, and we still work together, and it's phenomenal, right? Now, I'm learning a lot today also from people like Steve Blank, who's a serial entrepreneur and who's opened my eyes to customer development. I learn a lot from guys like Henry Chesbrough talking about open innovation. There are tons of people who influence my thinking, and I hope I can influence other people's thinking as well. I think the thing that we're missing today in business thinking often is weaving concepts, tools, and ideas together, like building an API between the different tools and ideas, and we're not doing that enough. And the people who I connect with most, Yves Pigneur, Henry Chesbrough, Steve Blank, are people who are willing to share, who want to advance by putting the best ideas together, all the best ideas. So that's the people, those are the people who I learn from most.
What's challenging you? What is one thing that you have not accomplished yet, but you would like to accomplish?
That I would like to accomplish. So, well, the first thing that I really want to accomplish is with my co-founders, Alan Smith and Peter Sonderecker, is build a great software company. So we started out extremely well. I mean, we're profitable, we make revenues, and we have people using our tools, and it's changing the way they're doing business. But we're not changing the world with that yet, so I really want to build an incredibly, insanely great software company that's also a great place to work at. That's number one. Number two, when my team and I achieve that, is to have a real impact in the world in terms of poverty alleviation through entrepreneurship, by helping teach those tools that can change everything. And I think entrepreneurship and the tools we now have in entrepreneurship can change a lot. So one of my big dreams is to build a really interesting investment fund that invests in entrepreneurs in Africa. There's a lot already going on. I mean, it's incredible, it's fun to watch. But I think one of the things that I can add to that is this whole tool aspect, methodology aspect. In addition to just the money and the experience, which others have way more money and more experience, I can bring in the methodological aspect together with other people who are working with me on methodological aspects. Steve Blank, Henry Chesbrough, Eric Ries, if you want. All those people have great tools. So I want to build an investment fund that invests in entrepreneurs who use the world's best tools and create great businesses through that, but businesses that don't just make an insane profit, businesses that have an impact in the world. Poverty alleviation, sustainability. That's what I really aspire to do in the longer term. I hope I already get to the first step, building a great software company.
Okay, very noble objectives. What would you say, because here in Spain everybody talks about the crisis, crisis this, crisis that. Yeah. What would you say to someone who is affected by the crisis?
So, it's always easy to talk about the crisis when you're not affected yourself, but you know what? When we started the book, Business Model Generation, it was 2008, there was a global economic crisis. And, take consultants and methods, and big companies were scaling back. They were not listening to consultants anymore. They were cutting costs. It's in that phase, in that period, that we launched our new ideas. So I think crises are among the best moments to launch new ideas, to try out new stuff. And you know what? You'll be ready when growth happens again. The worst thing to do is to depress when there's a crisis, to stop doing everything, and when the growth starts, you're not ready for growth. You're not ready for the next thing. So while crisis is a reality, I also think, we just need to experiment, try different things to break out of crisis. That's what we've done on a small scale. Obviously, it's much harder for a government to do that because the implications are different. But I think we need to try new stuff. We need to look ahead. We need to be courageous and experiment. That helps you get out of the crisis.
Okay. And my last question, really quick question, yes or no answers.
Wow.
Do you write all your blog posts yourself?
Oh yeah. That's why I'm not writing any anymore at the moment.
Do you run your Twitter account yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you design your PowerPoint yourself?
Oh yeah.
Are you sponsored by Post-it?
No, but we do have a stake in a company called Stattys, STATTYS.com, because they have electrostatic sticky notes. And I only use those because they're sticky notes on steroids. So we're not sponsored by them, but we have a 15% stake in their organization.
Are you working on a new book?
Who's not working on a new book?
And last but not least, would you accept my friend request if I sent you one on Facebook?
Oh yeah.
All right, thank you very much.